Well, basically, you start off simply with the shinai, which is the bamboo sword. Actually, it's right over there, but you can't see it. But it's basically 4 pieces of bamboo that's kind of roped together in a certain way. And you start. This is essentially what you start off with. Like, it's nothing more complicated than that. Even the uniform, which is the hakama and gi, you don't start off with that. Like, you get that later on. I have it now after a couple of months practice, but I only have the uniform and the tsuba. That's all I have. Now the bogu, which is the armor, you actually can't get that until 6 months of training kendo. So I am not permitted to order any of that. And actually ordering bogu is actually not cheap. It gets quite expensive. Like, you're looking at thousands of dollars of investment, because you have to buy the armor, you have to buy the gloves and the helmet, and yeah, so like all of that combined gets quite pricey, and all the material is stitched in a way that, you know, absorbs all the shocks. Because like, even if it's a bamboo sword, this thing hurts when you smack it on your head or your wrist, or like, people get injured, you know. So yeah, you need to have something that absorbs the shock, otherwise you're gonna get screwed. So in the past 2 months, I'd say, we've had opportunities to practice hits against someone wearing bogu. So I've practiced the head strike, the men. I've practiced the side and the wrist. And, you know, it seems easy in theory, but when you practice it, the motion, there's this concept called te no uchi. So it's kind of like, the way I can describe it is, you're wringing a towel. That's the way they describe it. So basically, like, when you're holding the shinai, when you lift it up over your head here, like, it should actually be loose in your hands to some extent. Like, if you like point your hands downwards, it should be able to slip down. Like, that's how it is. So that's the whole idea of like a swordsman in Japan, is that they hold it very lightly, so it can like kind of like slightly bounce between your hands. And when it strikes, when you hit the strike, then you kind of like wring the towel, you know? That's how it is. That's the kind of move. So that kind of idea, getting it in your head, takes a lot of practice. Like, some of these kendo masters in Japan, they practice this technique like maybe 3,000 strikes a day. Like, they're very serious about it. They do 3,000 strikes with the same strike, and they try to land it in the exact altitude every single time. So they're very, very diligent about this kind of thing. It's kind of crazy. I do practice at home. Like, I have to work, so I have to balance certain things, but I practice at home, like basically like between meetings. If I get an opportunity, I get up, I do like 50 to 100 strikes, and then I let go. But what's really interesting and similar to any kind of martial art is this concept of kikentai, right? And this is specific to kendo, but it's similar in other martial arts. So if you break it down, ki is kind of like spirit, ken is sword, and tai is body. So there's this concept called kikentai no ichi, which basically means sword, body, and spirit as one. And that's exactly what kendo is. Like, everything needs to be in unity. Like, when you strike, you can't just strike and not shout, for instance. And your body needs to do it. You have to have the perfect posture. So everything needs to be in sync. Otherwise, like, even in kendo tournaments, which is really interesting, even if a guy strikes a hit properly, if he didn't do it with everything in sync, he would not get the point, which is really interesting. Like, even if he got the hit, everything needs to be in sync. Like, and there's 2 referees judging everything. And like, for instance, and they're very, very serious about being completely immersed in the fight. Like, you have to have total respect for your opponent. For instance, there was this guy in a tournament in Japan a couple of years ago. He was perfect. He was in the zone, everything. He got the strikes, everything. Afterwards, he celebrated his victory. He lifted his arm up like this. Because he celebrated, he lost the point. Yeah, they are that serious about that kind of thing. Like you need to you need to basically immerse yourself like this is a fight between you and the opponent. You're not in a tournament. This is not you winning. This is just a battle between you two, and you have to focus on each other, immerse yourself in the battle, nothing else. Complete concentration. So they take that very seriously over there. Like I found that quite fascinating as well. But I have not done a single fight against anyone. Haven't done any kind of fight or sparring, nothing yet. But I'm very much looking forward to it. But that's the thing. I just don't think we're there yet. We one time a week is simply not enough to get there yet. Like you know, people in Japan they practice like 3-4 times a week, sometimes more. So they have one day for practicing certain strikes, another day for sparring, another day for footwork. Like they're very like organized with that kind of thing. So which is why they're able to do it. But yeah, it's a long way for me. But so far I've been thoroughly enjoying it. I think it's quite an interesting martial art, and my aspiration is to be kind of like. There's not really a scene of kendo here that's established in Qatar, so I really want to be part of that like grassroots community that would eventually lead up to something established. Because there's a kendo association, there's an international kendo association, and they basically look at every country, and they basically see they have certain rules and regulations to consider you an official kendo country. So let's say the rules are basically like you need to have more than one practicing kendo dojo, and they need to have practiced for a certain amount of time, and they need to have certain amount of people at this level, and then they will consider you an official practicing kendo country, and then you can participate in tournaments and whatever. So we're not there yet. We only have one dojo, and we don't even have like an official dojo that we call our own. Like we're constantly renting out places, gyms and everything. Recently we were practicing outdoors, so we can't even practice on a floor that's suitable for kendo. We're practicing on grass, so it's not ideal, but it's been interesting. It's been very interesting. But yeah, it's I'm looking forward to see what we can do with the club and everything. I'm really enjoying it, to be honest. So the guy who started the club is this Qatari guy. He's a friend of mine, and he's really into like Japan. Like he travels there like almost every year, in usual times, and like he's always had a connection to Japan. He speaks quite a decent amount of Japanese. Surprisingly, I was quite surprised because he's never lived there. He hasn't actually taken lessons, so he has literally just picked it up from his time with kendo and like just being exposed to Japan and Japanese culture. So he's a very interesting guy in that sense. But everyone else, they have nothing, like they have no comprehension of Japanese. I'm kind of the odd one out in that sense. And it's been interesting because sometimes like the sensei, for instance, would say things as if you guys were there as someone who speaks some Japanese, you start hearing it as like that doesn't sound right. He probably meant to say it in this way or that way, or it's probably this word, yeah. So it's interesting, but yeah, there is a difference between like foreign kendo and Japanese kendo to some extent. But yeah, that's been my kendo journey. What about you guys? What have you guys been doing lately? You guys been doing anything to do with Japan? That's my Japanese exposure, and I've been doing a lot of things as well. But Bastian, you were telling me that you're studying Japanese. That's great, man. You're still studying Japanese? Yeah, so you're still all about the flashcards kind of thing. Is that working for you? Yeah. But have you been practicing any other languages? Hmm. Sorry. Sorry, go on. Hmm. Yeah, I feel you. Actually, I was just watching a video that came out by someone called Paolo in Tokyo or something like that. He published a video today on YouTube that's titled "Why Japanese People Don't Like Foreigners Living in Japan." And I just thought, like, that was such a misleading statement when you watch the video. The rest of the video, he's just talking about things you shouldn't do to piss Japanese people off. You know, don't stick your chopsticks in the food. Don't walk into a house with your shoes. You know? And I was just like, man, this is the most clickbaity thing I've ever seen. But, you know. Mm, yeah. But, yeah. But I feel like that kind of portrayal is very unique to Japan, you know, because Japan tends to be exotified quite a lot by, you know, the West and outside. So they're constantly like treating them like, oh man, they are so diligent in this way or so special in that way, and don't do this. It's completely disrespectful. But like, I kind of think a lot of these things forget that they're also human beings, you know, like it's kind of grouping them up as one kind of stereotype, which, you know, I'm not really a fan of. Yeah. That's completely true, yeah. I mean, I mean, you've been working on a study on social media, right? Nothing at all. You didn't interview any Japanese people. Okay, now you're just bullshitting. Yep. So do you miss Japan though? Like, do you kind of like think about it at least, or is it kind of like just another place? Well, you before the episode you were telling me you wanted to talk about Prime Minister Suga. So what's your thoughts on him? Yeah. 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 Our teachers, yeah. Yeah. I feel you. Yeah, we definitely learned a lot of interesting things, but yeah, I mean, can we be surprised with this guy? I mean, yeah, like you said, Bastian, he was basically Abe's right hand man. He won the votes by a landslide. Like apparently, like around 300 of 400 seats kind of voted for him. So, I mean, is there anything special about him? I feel like that's mainly the topic people discuss. Like, what's special about this guy? You know, what does he bring to the table? Mm, most likely, yeah. Yeah. All right. What do you guys think about his recent promises? Like he had his first diet session. Well, he made some promises in his like he led his first diet session like a couple of days ago, and he was basically saying that he was kind of addressing the pandemic. He was saying where they're gonna try and revitalize the economy. He made some general statements, and he was saying that they're gonna invest. The kind of main point that he made was that they're gonna invest a lot in like next generation solar cells and carbon recycling. And he said that this would kind of accelerate research and development and lead to Japan becoming carbon neutral in 2050. Yeah. So I don't know, like, what do you guys think about that? Like, off the top of your heads, we don't need to be experts in, how Japan handles the environment, but you know, do you think that's a practical goal, like for Japan? Interesting. Yeah. 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 But is it really, can we really consider it as clean energy though? Because, all the waste it produces, how does Japan manage waste? Like we saw in terms of disaster, you saw how they packed it up in these bags and just tossed them up in the fields. And, but like, yeah. Yeah. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. 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 Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. I mean, he. It's interesting to hear him, kind of emphasize this goal of, clean energy and carbon neutral, and because later on in the same session, in during the Q&A, people kind of pressed him on the topic where there was this recent, and it's kind of his first kind of controversial stir, is that they were looking to recruit or like nominate these 6 academics to be kind of new members of the Science Council of Japan, which is kind of like the leading academic body in Japan. You know what? You're probably right, but yeah, basically, apparently Suga rejected the nominees because, and this is according to certain people's suggestions. So apparently, he rejected them because they were outspoken on controversy. Uh, so yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Hmm. Well, that's enough of. I mean, I don't know what more to add on top of what's been said about him. I mean, he seems like just kind of like he seems like a typical LDP politician to me. I mean, some of the other things he's mentioned is, he's commented on relations with China, North Korea, and South Korea, like Asian neighbors, and as everyone knows, kind of Japan has had a tumultuous relationship with all at certain points. So I mean, he said, with North Korea, he said he'd be willing to meet with Kim without preconditions. Yeah, with China, he said he'd look for areas of common interest, but he would be assertive about Japan's position on places where they disagree, uh, which is basically how Japan's kind of handled it in the past. And with South Korea, you guys remember when there was kind of like a recent spat because this company in South Korea kind of tried to sue the Japanese government because of the wartime labor issue. So that kind of, yeah, he kind of mentioned how he urged them to restore a healthy relationship and whatnot. So I mean, it's kind of words, but who knows? I guess the main kind of problem for everyone right now is the pandemic. So it's kind of difficult to work with these limitations. But I say that, but then you see things like normalizing relations with Israel and stuff like in other parts of the world. So who knows? I mean, there's a lot of weird stuff happening. Did he? Where did he go? Did he go for a holiday? How old is he? How old is this guy? Jesus, man. How really, how old is he? Because I want to compare his age. What? 71. Okay. All right. Interesting. Really? Yeah. Hmm. Hmm. Well, another statue torn down in 2020. Okay, no, I think we went past that phase to some extent. Oh, you forgot about all the statues being torn down this year? Well, everywhere, not just the States. Yeah. Oh, controversial statement there, Bastian. I don't know if I share the same opinion as you. I mean, I think it's a political statement more than anything, right? Like taking down this statue. So, you know, I don't really have any thoughts to say about the act of doing it. But I do think it's interesting how South Korea is still kind of like investing in building these statues in different areas in the world. That's I mean, it's interesting. Mm. Mm. Yeah. Yeah, drawing Germany as a comparison is actually a very good example from my point of view, at least. I mean, I don't feel like Japan does that. In fact, they do the opposite. they trying to divert attention away from it, which is why I honestly think it's one of the reasons why like other countries are doing such things, trying to bring this up and causing controversy and everything, is because Japan is not putting enough effort to kind of inform their population of things like the Nanking massacre. In fact, they're censoring things, so they're going the other way. So like, yeah. So I mean, yeah. Oh, that doesn't help. Yeah, that is problematic to say the least. Yeah. Yeah, you guys know about the notorious Japan's experiment zone, Unit 731, right? Yeah. Some of the stuff I've read there is really freaky. Like, like when you watch Saw, it's like that's a joke compared to what happened here, Like, oh my goodness. But in more positive news, like, how's I was reading something interesting about the pandemic in Japan, which is that apparently rich people in Japan have started spending like there's no tomorrow, like during this whole pandemic, like their spending has increased significantly. And we know millionaires have benefited from this pandemic. Like, you guys know, like Jeff Bezos, what do you get, like 48 million, or no, way more than, like, what do you make, like 6 trillion in a month or something? It was ridiculous. Yeah, like a ludicrous amount of money. So like, yeah, apparently, like in Japan, there's been a lot of spending exceeding over like 100 million yen, like per household, and like for some of the rich. Yeah, apparently they're like renovating their houses. They're investing in like non-essentials. They're buying like number plates and nameplates for their luxury cars. Yeah, like there's apparently a lot of spending going on in Japan. Yeah. Yeah, and you know what's even more interesting? Consumer goods. I mean, I guess people are bored and at home, right? And yeah, honestly. Yeah. Yeah. But I wonder what's the typical renovation like in Japan? Is it vertical rather than horizontal? Like, yeah, like because of the lack of space. Like, let's say you're a rich guy living in Tokyo. You're not gonna have all the space and land to kind of like renovate horizontally and expand. Like, would they be making their houses higher? Like, like, yeah, yeah. Yeah, mansions are not really a thing in Japan, are they? Like, they're not really a popular thing. I could be wrong on that. I could be wrong, but uh, mansions. Yeah, like, hmm. Yeah, yeah. Look up some Japanese luxury estates. You know, see what's on the market. I'm quite curious. But you know what else is really interesting about this pandemic and kind of like the spending spree is that, you know, like, do you guys know the anime Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba? Kimetsu no Yaiba. Yeah, it's Sebastian Bastion. Bastion, I recommend it. It's actually great. It's short, doesn't waste too much of your time. But yeah, like a new movie just came out for this anime, and it made $44 million in Japan alone, which is basically like breaking records. Like apparently Frozen 2 made 30 million. Like, just to put it in perspective, in its first 3 days. So, and if you consider, like, it's in a pandemic, it releases on a Friday, which is like kind of unusual for the cinemas in Japan. Like, they made so much damn money from this. I wonder, like, this is like record breaking number, and it's basically the third highest earning Japanese film of the year. So it's kind of interesting that it made so much money in a pandemic, you know, because cinemas, I don't know if you guys have been reading, like, the cinema industry, like Hollywood in general, it's kind of in crisis. They, like, a bunch of Hollywood stakeholders came together and appealed to the US government for a loan because they're going bankrupt, essentially. Like, they're losing a lot of money. They can't make movies. The cinemas are all closed. Cinema industry is just in limbo right now. Like, who knows what's gonna happen to it? Like, I wouldn't be surprised if the future of movies is all gonna be on streaming services. Like, you saw how Mulan came out on Disney Plus. Like, it was trash. I do agree. It was pretty terrible. But, like, yeah, I wonder, you know, what's it gonna be like for anime? You know, like, you see Netflix investing more than ever in anime now. They just onboarded a whole ton of new studios, and they're investing in all these IPs. They're getting all these interesting mangas that were very popular in Japan. They're getting them made, and they're doing quite well with anime. They saw record breaking numbers from anime this year. A lot of people watching anime, surprisingly, on Netflix. And then you see, for instance, Crunchyroll, which is the biggest anime streaming service platform. It's getting bought by Sony. So there's like a lot of interesting streaming moves, like acquisitions happening for anime now, which I thought was quite interesting. You do? Yes, watch it. It's very good. Yeah, I do recommend Borat too. It was an interesting movie. Uh, I think it would come off as very offensive. I think, like, I don't think he could get away with it. It needs to be a Japanese person, you know. As what? I have not. No. Yeah. I haven't been keeping up with my Nolan lately, but it's definitely on the list. I mean, the most recent thing I watched was Borat 2, and I watched She-Ra on Netflix. I thought that was interesting. Do you guys know He-Man? That cartoon, yes. So like, it's basically a Western animation. It's a classic vintage one, and it was made like, I don't know, if you look at the old animation, it's really ugly in my opinion. I hate how it looks, but they kind of re-envisioned it and they made it more like progressive, and it's much more diverse now, and it's a complete reimagining. I actually enjoy it. It's quite good. Like, it's basically all about like just badass girl power. That's the best way I can explain it, but I do enjoy it. Like, it's a nice animation. I thought that was decent. Besides that, nothing much. I mean, yeah, Cobra Kai is great. I can't wait for the next season in January. Yeah, that can come soon enough. Yeah, there's some good stuff going on. But yeah, there's this whole like anime renaissance happening apparently. I can't relate to it so much because I don't watch anime all the time. But like, for instance, you guys know Inuyasha. Like, yeah, Inuyasha just got a sequel. It's happening. Yeah, like a sequel, like with new characters and everything. I haven't watched it, but I'm quite interested. I know that there's this new anime that everyone's raving on about. I forgot what it's called, but apparently it's only like 5 episodes in. Everyone's saying how it's really, really good. The name will come back to me. I think it's Gijutsu something. Jujutsu something, right? Like Jujutsu Kaisen. Yeah, apparently it's a new one. It's been airing for a couple of weeks. Apparently it's really good. Like, so yeah, I'm looking for an opportunity to catch up with some anime because it's been a while. But yeah. Yeah. Distracting way. It's like very unnecessary, right? Like, it takes you out the immersion. That's the problem. Like, sometimes you're watching something with a compelling storyline, and then the girl's like half naked for no like apparent reason. So it's, yeah, it is kind of distracting. It does take me out the zone, and it is an issue you see in other forms of media as well. Yeah. I mean, yeah, this might sound radical, but I think with Nicki Minaj, I think she's going for that. You know, like, that's the intended message, is that she's using that as a form of empowerment, a form of making a statement. So, you know, WAP. I don't like. I don't think it's distracting from the core subject, because that is the core subject, right? Like, but like when it's in a storyline that's trying to take itself seriously, for instance, Code Geass, for example, just an example, getting into Gundam robots and everything, and the girl, for no apparent reason, is in her bikini in the robots, you know, like, why? And everyone else is dressed up, you know, like, why? So like, that's when it's really irritating to me, is that when it doesn't make sense, it's very annoying. And it's all because of fan service. So what can you do? I'm impressed with that. Well, shall we wrap this up? There's some bentos in this house. There's some. Okay, I'm gonna stop. I mean, I listened to it like once or twice. How can you not listen to it? It's so massive. You didn't hear the Ben Shapiro version? Yeah, Ben Shapiro. We do not endorse Ben Shapiro on Bento Bureau. Anyway, yep, we've been talking for about an hour, so I think this is good. This was a nice conversation, actually. I think we can build upon this. Yeah, we can do this. We can definitely do it. Maybe we can invite someone along next time and just have the conversation with us. Yeah, very creative. All right, thanks everyone for joining us. I don't think many people joined us today, but next time we'll schedule it in advance now that we got an idea of this format. But yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this episode of Bento Bureau. We'll be back next week with another conversation, so join us again. But in the meantime, let's do our cue and put our hands together to say Gochusou sama deshita. All right, see you everyone. Have a good Saturday.